Today I'll be revealing the 11th faulty mechanic in Melee. I've saved one of the best for last, as the benefits that come with fixing this mechanic can't be understated. So far I've advocated for 10 mechanics to be fixed for competitive play. 5 of these are polling related, while 4 are range related. Then the Z-Jump toggle falls under a category called hardware. Today's mechanic, which is called Analog Digital Transition Shield, falls under the hardware category as well. ADT Shield is the more valuable of the 2 hardware improvements because its software fix can't be replicated on a physical level. Whereas Z-Jump can be used by rewiring the Gamecube controller's motherboard, ADT can only be fixed by reprogramming the game. I'll start by explaining what ADT is. ADT occurs when a shoulder trigger is pulled in the analog region on frame 1 followed by a digital press on frame 2. This mechanic has merit in that it allows you to use the light shield sphere from your previous frame as a reflect sphere for projectiles. Because a light shield sphere can be larger than the digital shield sphere, ADT allows you to produce a larger and better reflect sphere. Unfortunately, ADT is not relevant for this purpose the vast majority of the time, but rather for a separate problem it creates. The problem with ADT is that when you perform it, your shield will not protect you from physical attacks on frames 2 and 3. As you can see, the shield sphere is absent on these frames, and from there it appears on frame 4. This problem occurs very often due to the nature of the Gamecube controller's shoulder triggers. Since the triggers have to make it through the light shield region in order to make it to a digital press, the chance of ADT is unavoidable on a stock Gamecube controller. This makes for one of the most egregious mechanical issues in Melee, as ADT will constantly cause your shield to fail to protect you from physical attacks. The only way to circumvent ADT is to remove the spring from your trigger so that it goes directly to a digital press. However, this solution comes with problems of its own. The first problem that comes to mind is that a stock Gamecube controller's hardware isn't suitable for competitive Melee. If someone were to use a Gamecube controller fresh out of the box, for example, that controller would be at a disadvantage. This is egregious in itself because it's unrealistic for everyone to know that they need to modify their Gamecube controller's hardware. Another quality of life issue is the fact that ADT forces you to light shield with your other trigger. This is because once you remove a spring from one of your triggers, you can no longer light shield with that trigger, and so your 2 shields have to be awkwardly divided. The biggest problem, however, has to do with elevating the Gamecube controller to the box's level of play. Naturally, the box is immune to ADT due to the fact that it doesn't have springs. The box is also able to enjoy a good button layout which allows its user to hold shield down while retaining control over the other buttons. That brings me to the next subject, which is the Gamecube controller's button layout. Melee players have recently caught on to the fact that the best Gamecube controller layout actually isn't the default layout, but rather a layout that uses Z as a jump button. This button swap has proven to be essential since it allows you to jump, then reach A, B, or the C stick with a separate finger. However, Z-Jump is still relatively new, which is why the problem it creates with the shoulder triggers has yet to be fully realized. The problem the Z-Jump layout suffers from is that it largely takes your R button out of commission. This is because your right index finger should always be poised atop the Z button when using this layout. R can only be comfortably used for wave dashing at that point, since wave dashes can still be performed with 2 fingers by pressing X or Y, then R. This means that the L button has to perform several duties on the Z-Jump layout. In theory, L should be used for shielding as well as L canceling so that you can perform these actions while Z-jumping with your opposite finger. Unfortunately though, it's impossible for L to excel in both of these departments on vanilla Melee. The dilemma with the L trigger has to do with the fact that you have to remove its spring in order to make yourself immune to ADT. While removing the spring from L achieves this purpose, it comes with 2 downsides. First, you'll lose the ability to Z-jump out of a light shield. Then, even more importantly, you'll become unable to analog L cancel. For those unfamiliar with analog L canceling, I released a video last year which explained why it's the only L cancel method that should ever be used. This video also explained that the box was designed with analog L canceling in mind, as its Z button is located on the home row so that this technique can be accessible. To briefly recap why analog L canceling is essential, it allows you to not only increase your L cancel timing windows, but also your tech windows. This is due to the fact that it lets you L cancel during hit lag as well as tech at a separate timing. To summarize what I just went over, playing vanilla Melee with Z-Jump relegates you to one of 2 choices. The first choice is to remove the spring from L in order to make your shield immune to ADT. This comes at the expense of not being able to use L for light shield or analog L cancel. The second choice is to keep a spring in your L trigger, which results in these advantages and disadvantages being reversed. The fact that these benefits can't be simultaneously enjoyed on vanilla is what warrants a software fix. Altimore and I have added this to 1.03 in the form of an ADT fix. The ADT fix states that when you perform a light shield on frame 1 followed by a digital shield on frame 2, your shield will protect you from physical attacks on frames 2 and 3. As you can see, the shield sphere remains active when this polling sequence occurs, which means the issue caused by ADT is resolved. Something to be aware of is that the ADT fix is the only controller fix which does break game integrity in one area. The violation of game integrity I'm referring to has to do with Falco. On Vanilla Melee, a trigger with a spring in it will usually power shield Falco's laser by performing an ADT power shield. However, this trigger will always run the risk of failing to protect you from a physical attack. The hybrid shield we've created is able to ADT power shield Falco's laser while also being immune to the physical attack issue, which is a violation of game integrity. After careful consideration, Altamore and I agreed that this was the one violation that needed to be permitted in the entire game. This is because patching out the ADT issue comes with benefits that can be considered necessary. These benefits include making sure that everyone is immune to the ADT issue, allowing people to light shield and digital shield with the same trigger, and allowing people to analog L cancel with that trigger as well. Most importantly, fixing ADT is needed in order to unlock the best Gamecube controller layout. With the ADT issue fixed, the best setup becomes a Z-jump layout with a spring in the L trigger. L is able to serve all of the purposes it needs to on this layout. For example, you can shuffle an aerial by Z-jumping, then analog L canceling with L. You can also perform an ADT immune shield with L and then Z-jump out of it. My next recommendation for this layout is to remove the spring from the R trigger. Although removing the spring from R isn't necessary, it makes wave dashes feel better since you no longer have to depress the spring in order to perform them. All in all, the ADT shield fix is one of the most significant gameplay fixes. It's also one of the most enjoyable since it helps optimize the Gamecube controller's hardware. If you're interested in trying the ADT shield fix, make sure to download the latest 1.03 files from Box.com. This update marks an exciting milestone for Melee, as I believe that this is the final patch that should be used to level the playing field between the Gamecube controller and Box. The Melee community has been looking for a solution when it comes to balancing these two controller types, and so I'm hoping this patch pays dividends going forward. With that being said, please let us know your thoughts about this update, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoy this type of Melee content.